Welcome to the Real Safe Agent 5-part Safe Selling series. This course is designed to provide you with the knowledge of how to evaluate the prospect, property, and circumstances of a showing or a situation so that you can assess the collective risk of all three of those and make a better, more informed decision about what actions are appropriate to minimize the risk and keep yourself safe. Real estate agents face an entirely different set of challenges than the general population when it comes to safety. The general population stays safe by not being alone with strangers where they are hidden from the eyesight and earshot of others. But this is how a real estate agent makes a living. The general population removes themselves from a situation as soon as they begin to feel uncomfortable or unsafe. But an agent will hesitate to do that because they do not want to risk offending a potential client and/or losing the sale. Real estate agents take calculated risks in order to make a living, and therein lies the key to staying safe as a real estate agent. By adopting the E.A.R method, evaluating the prospect, property, and circumstances, assessing the overall risk, and reacting appropriately, agents can make better decisions from a safety point of view and keep themselves safer. Data regarding the safety of the real estate industry is kept by the United States Bureau of Labor Statistics, but not all incidents get reported. Data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics is self-reported from businesses, so if a brokerage does not inform the Bureau of a crime, then it is not included in the data. This point will become very important when we discuss our next set of facts. Here is the data reported to the Bureau of Labor Statistics for 2013, which is the last year that we have complete data. In 2013, 23 people were murdered while selling or leasing real estate. Over 330 people were victims of assaults, rapes, or murder. There is no accurate data available on how many were victims of theft, robbery, attempted assault, or attempted rape. Since 2006, violent crimes against people selling and/or leasing real estate has risen 300%. Thanks to the first comprehensive 5-year academic study about crime in the real estate industry, we now have accurate information about what is going on in the real estate industry. Here are the facts. Over 5% of agents have been or will be victims of a violent crime while showing a home. 80% of the crimes went or will be unreported. Remember what we talked about with the Bureau of Labor Statistics? They are voluntary and will only be counted if reported. If the agents aren't reporting the crimes, then how can the brokerage report it to the Bureau? If this number sounds high to you, the FBI tells us that approximately 74% of the rapes that occur in this country go unreported. And the interesting thing about that statistic is the higher education, income, and/or professional level of the female, the higher the percentage that will not report the crime. Men get raped as well, and according to the FBI, approximately 95% of those will go unreported. And lastly, approximately 50% of assaults against men also go unreported. Speaking of males, 30% of the victims of violent crime in the real estate industry are or will be men. We also now have a profile of who's out there attacking agents, and I'm sure this will be surprising to most of you. The typical profile is a 25 to 55-year-old Caucasian male, middle to upper middle class, who works in the trades or white-collar industries, and is normally in a long-term relationship, though not necessarily married. Not who you were thinking, is it? Now let's look at the types of crimes real estate agents are most likely to run into. Premeditated crime. These were pre-planned. The intent from the beginning was to commit the crime, so a plan was thought out beforehand. This plan may be rudimentary or sophisticated. These can either be a crime against a person or a crime against property. Versus a crime of opportunity. These aren't planned, rather the opportunity presented itself. Most often a crime against property, theft. Not typically a theft of something on your person, more likely the theft of something in the house, your bag if left unattended, or your car if left unlocked or unattended. Most crime against real estate agents is predatory crime, not crimes of opportunity. Now let's talk about the components of a crime. There are 3 components to every crime: means, motive, and opportunity. You only need to affect one of these to prevent a crime from occurring. While we cannot affect their motive, understanding their motive will help you be more aware and have a better grasp of what drives an individual and help us affect the other 2 parts. Motive is an essential part of any crime. Most crimes against agents have one of two motives. The first is profit. The goal is to obtain money or valuables, usually associated with crimes against property unless it involves kidnapping for ransom. It is usually premeditated if it involves robbery against the agent directly, more likely a crime of opportunity if it involves theft of items in the home or from the agent's bag. Typically will not lead to violence unless the victim is not compliant in the case of robbing the agent directly, or the thief gets caught in the act and the person that caught them is aggressive, in the case of stealing items from the home or someone's bag. The second motive is the power motive. The goal is to feel powerful or gain control over an internal compulsion, situation, or another person. They are normally associated with crimes against a person. They are almost always premeditated, but in rare instances could be a crime of compulsion. And they typically will be violent and it may involve a sexual offense. This chart shows the difference between the two types of criminals, the predator and the thief. Let's talk about the thief first. Their crimes are burglary or robbery. They are motivated by profit and make their decisions on risk versus reward, not emotion. They are looking for lower risk and higher reward scenarios. To make yourself unattractive to thieves, do not wear an overabundance of jewelry, especially at an open house. We will talk more about this when we discuss images we use in our marketing. They need to be isolated from you and others where they can't be seen or heard to commit their crime without being caught. Thieves are much more common at an open house than at a showing, because it's much easier to get away from the agent at the open house. The most common type of thief an agent could come in contact with is someone who is going to steal something from the property during the open house, or use the open house as a way to case the property and come back later to burglarize the home. The exception to this is what is called the couples play at a showing. If you are with two or more people at a showing, and one person keeps running off while the other person is talking to you and/or distracting you, this could be a theft team. So be aware of where all of your prospective clients and their companions are during a showing. The predator is a completely different type of criminal. They are motivated by power and control. Their decisions are made to fill an emotional need. Their goal is to get you somewhere where you can't be seen or heard to create the scene needed for the crime to occur. Their attractors are signs of subservience, weakness, and vulnerability. Predators know that it is much easier to get an agent isolated if they are feeling more comfortable with them. And because they are emotionally driven, they will do whatever they need in order to gain that trust. This is why meeting at the office or requesting a picture of their driver's license is normally not enough to deter them or stop a crime. In many cases of attacks against agents, the predator provided their actual license. Predators are much more common at showings than at open houses. This is why showings are actually more dangerous than open houses, even though the common misperception is that the opposite is true. A predator's crime and all the activities that lead up to it are part of an obsessive-compulsive cycle known as the offender's cycle. This cycle starts with a trigger. This trigger could be external or internal. Each predator's trigger is unique to them, so we won't know specifically what that trigger is, but it is almost always associated with feelings of worthlessness or inadequacy. To relieve these feelings, they start the initial deviant behavior. This behavior helps ease their stress, but the guilt they feel about indulging the behavior increases their feelings of worthlessness or inadequacy, and they have to engage in even more deviant behavior to relieve the stress. This will continue to escalate until they reach the SUD, the seemingly unimportant decision. That is the tipping point, and after that point, the attack will occur. Until the SUD, the predator can exit the cycle and stop the escalation. Now let's look at the timeline of the crime. For a power motive timeline, the initial focus. The crime begins when the predator first notices you. We will talk about making ourselves less attractive to predators in the next section of the series. The next step is the focusing behavior. The predator is seeking you out to learn more about you, typically online. We will discuss online presence in the next section as well. Next is the fantasy stage. The predator begins to insert themselves into your life and begin to fantasize about you. The fantasies may be something as simple as a chance meeting or may take on a more complex or darker form. The predator may engage in stalking behaviors, likely online but possibly in public as well. These stalking behaviors will often give the predator that emotional thrill or high that they are looking for. Understand that the predator will normally be focused on several agents in phases 1 through 3. At some point, the stalking behaviors will no longer provide the emotional high, and the predator will decide that they need to meet you, and they will pick a location. This is our SUD. Until this stage, they can stop the cycle. Once they reach this point, the predator may not attack the first, second, or even 20th agent that they meet, but the attack will occur. Executing the plan. The first step in executing the plan will be to arrange the meeting by calling you and asking you to show them the home. This will be your first opportunity to assess the risk of the prospect. The predator will meet you at the location, though it is possible that they could no-show depending on their state of mind and/or comfort level with their urges. The predator will repeat phases 4 through 6 on several agents, because the predator always meets with multiple agents before the attack occurs. The reason could be that they are working up to an attack, or something at the meeting isn't fitting their scenario. For example, the agent brought someone with them. The agent is being very confident or dominant instead of being subservient. The predator couldn't get them isolated, etc. During this showing, the predator will seek to set up the perfect scenario that meshes with their fantasy and gets you isolated where you cannot be seen or heard by others. They may ask you to come look at something in a closet or show them the basement, for example. By following certain guidelines that we will discuss further in the series, you can prevent the attack by not allowing yourself to be isolated. When the stage is set the way they want it and you are isolated, the attack will occur. Before the attack, the predator will display outward signs of increased adrenaline and agitation. By understanding those signs, which we will discuss further along in the series, the agent can exit before the attack occurs. Notice that the majority of the crime is occurring before the actual meeting takes place. Although less complicated and certainly less emotional, crimes with a profit motive involve a specific process as well. The need decision. The criminal arrives at the decision that they have a financial need. The target may be you or the property, depending on the criminal's preference. If you are the target, it is possible that you were chosen at random, but it is more likely that they chose you specifically because they feel that you will be carrying cash and/or wearing expensive jewelry. If the property is the target, more than likely you are a catalyst chosen at random. Planning. Depending on the severity of the crime, there may be very little planning, such as a simple robbery of items on your person or easily hidden items in the home, up to complex planning for a more severe crime, such as a kidnapping for ransom or a whole house burglary. Just as with planning, the execution may be simple and take very little time and resources, or it may be complicated and involve considerable time and resources. Now we have a better understanding of the crimes that agents have the greatest risk of encountering, the people who commit those crimes and their motivations, as well as the timeline of crimes. The next section will discuss ways that you can reduce your risk of being targeted by a predator or a thief.